Well, welcome everyone. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to look at ChatGPT and see if it can critique our early analysis of decision provenance. And this is something that I would like to do more regularly within this think tank, because part of the issue is also learning how to work conversationally with ChatGPT and other LLMs. It's not just about accepting what it says first of all, the bat, but also thinking about how it might critique it and what are the prompts to critique what it's just said to come to a synthesis, a conclusion. So let's get into it. What is wrong with decision provenance, and can we come to a synthesis that works? Okay, so I am not going to go into a great level of detail around this, but I have had a long engagement with ChatGPT, and one of the key things was to look at the idea of decision provenance, and I asked it, now honestly and without hallucination, tell me the problems with the idea. And in short, it said it was a strong idea, but had some real structural problems. It mentioned, for instance, that a decision is often not discrete. It mentioned that, it's going down further, the very act of logging decision turning points affects human judgment. They start retroactively using that as the point to justify a decision. Also, knowing that there will be an interaction logged means that influences how humans actually respond. They start to game the system. And also we find that AI might get blamed or credited when things go wrong, that it might become weaponized, that sometimes it can be epistemically unhealthy. What that means is that it exists as a record, therefore it must be true, but we need to consider other things like tacit knowledge, like non-verbal communication and so forth. It also, to scale it, is difficult. Organisations like automation and dashboards, and this requires more humans in the loop, human reflection on decision provenance to come to a decision. There's also the legal risk that provenance logs can be evidence against you, or a cultural mismatch. Some organisations just don't want to know. They want plausible deniability. And of course, as I said before, human judgment is not just about the decision provenance, it's about tacit, intuitive, embodied, non-verbal and affective decision making. So really we need to think of it as a tool for disciplined humility, not certainty. It does not reveal how decisions are made. It reveals how organisations talk about decisions once AI is involved. So those are the 10 points that, in short, ChatGPT came up with against decision provenance. Now I did answer those, and this is in a long chat here. I won't go through it, I'll just give you the answers. But basically what I say is as follows. And this is a critical point to understand, so I'll spend a minute just explaining it. I reframe these problems in terms of the system we're looking at. At the moment, governance systems and logs assume a complicated environment, a point solution. With AI, increasingly we're introducing something new into the organisation, a complex adaptive system which requires heuristic governance, and I'll explain that. What do I mean? Complex adaptive. We generate solutions in the moment, solutions that we could not have perceived before. We surface opportunities as well as risks. It's heuristically managed in those complex adaptive systems because it's generative. We cannot say put a constraint on everything. We can only say, here's a baseline guardrail, do not cross that point. That kind of response. So to get the value out of DeepMind, Anthropic and these AIs requires new forms of governance, because legacy governance is not suitable for the system we're moving to, because it constrains and will not enable generativity. That is the key point. And all else flows from that. And it also means that because AI increases multiplicity, not certainty, we also need a way to manage better AI generativity, we have and must have humans in the loop, which means we need a new organ of governance, what I call an emergent systems board that is not constrained by legacy governance processes, that looks for heuristics, enables generativity, may even have be supported by an AI judge bot, for instance, something that can also critique back to humans. But ultimately, the arbiters of decision is the human in the loop. What we're looking at with decisions and decision provenance is increasing and understanding the complex adaptive environment, increasing the data for us to understand what how a decision should be made. And this is basically what I go through. I'll stop at the key points here. We don't want to paralyze decision making with legacy processes. We need to rely on agreement in human interpretation and debate. Emergent Systems Board needs to be reintroduced, therefore. Post hoc rationalization is certainly a risk. Provenance systems don't just record rationalization, they shape it. That could be true, but again, we need governance with teeth, relevant governance with teeth. I mean, yes, we capture a lot of information, but that's true also of clinical monitoring, CCTV and so forth. We just need psychological safety. We need better institutional design quality. We need to avoid false objectivity through better time debate. These all fit to the new governance framework that I won't go into here, but in other vlogs I will, that sits around decision provenance, in other words, Emergent System Board. And yes, there's scalability issues, but if we depend on current legacy processes, all we'll be doing is creating flat systems that become performative. So we do need to broach this. The cultural resistance, that's potentially true, but then again you need to consider, if we believe AI is coming to businesses in ever stronger ways through DeepMind and Anthropic, is that true and fair? Can you afford to be behind the curve, or should you start be looking at it now to develop the right governance heuristics in place, to develop the right AI human orchestrators in place who can manage the conversation with AI to enable it to generate better solutions for your organization? And also, we have to be very clear that because we have humans in the loop, tacit judgment is absolutely considered. It's not provenance is augmentation, not capture. So that's essentially what I went through with AI. It developed one sentence to possibly add to that. Decision provenance does not eliminate ambiguity or power. It makes them visible enough to be governed rather than denied. Okay. I then had a discussion about provenance systems being just record rationalization. They also don't just do that, they also shape it. And again, this feeds back to the point that all human institutions hold that risk, for instance, of groupthink, that an AI should not be perceived as the judge, and that ultimately humans remain the ultimate arbiters of a decision. The AI essentially surfaces alternative plausible interpretations, highlights where rationalization may have occurred, flags compression of uncertainty, and identifies missing branches. We then basically summarize that in that what we need to consider is a triadic structure, human decision makers, provenance system of record, and potentially AI review agent. And where there's disagreement, we need to capture it. So the annotation of disagreement is an essential safeguard. Okay. So that's one area that I discussed with ChatGPT. We then had moved on to thinking about the type of environment. I've been through stating the importance of complex adaptive systems, so I won't go through that. Yes, it also introduces new governance risks, but of course that's true of all anything that's going to be reviewed, whether it's accounting, audits, clinical records, and so forth. Anything that exposes reality creates governance obligations. And how decision provenance makes influence visible, preserves optionality, records constraint evolution, exposes where uncertainty collapsed, and shows how authority entered the system. So those are the main points. The next area, it did summarise, but I think we've been through that. The next area really was just to check the honesty of what we've discussed. So with ChatGPT, we've been through the positive side, we've looked at the negative side. I've come back with determinations of my answer to the negative side. Now we're looking for a wrap-up. And here I asked, why don't we just have decision provenance alone without governance? That rejects it, basically because of its ontological weakness. It depends on only a traceable influence, not its interpretation, and influence is often not fully observable. A system of record freezes a fluid process of sense making. It doesn't escape framing bias. It risks privileging AI, creates narrative gravity, and so on and so forth. So it really fits together, two sides of the same coin. Decision provenance with the right governance mechanism around it of an emergent systems board. And finally, if I go to the right spot, you'll have to excuse me, I do ask for a question, a fundamental, really important question, this, and let me get to the right spot, and that is, so be honest, should we not do decision provenance and depend on the existing system? And the final wrap-up answer to this, after we've been through the positives, negatives, and my response to that is no. We should not just stick with the existing system, but also no, we should not pretend decision provenance is a silver bullet. The honest position is doing nothing is worse than doing decision provenance imperfectly, provided you are clear about what kind of thing you are building. At the moment, of course, legacy systems engage in taking minutes, emails, personal notes, legal narratives. It basically has three defining properties. AI influences invisible, decisions can be reconstructed, not recorded, and accountability can be performative. I think is performative is a bit too strong. What happens if we depend on that system as AI scales is essentially, hopefully you can see this now, AI influence grows, human memory is selective and remains selective, authority bias increases and provenance disappears. And that result is worse than today. In actual fact, it becomes reckless because we cannot understand or maintain AI as it is going to be within the system. So that really leaves us with your choice about whether you want to look into this or not. Certainly it will create and raise new risks, but so does every system. And certainly some organisations will sit on their laurels and think they don't have to do anything, but I would strongly suggest that it's important to consider this now, because over the next few years AI will become increasingly important to your business. The correct conclusion is we should do decision provenance, but only if we're willing to accept what it reveals and governs what it changes. So I hope that was useful to you. Decision provenance traces, part of what I'd called reasoning traces in AI, in that AI human loop, are critical to your business. They enable you, with an emergent systems board, to create the right infrastructure of governance to maintain the value of AI going forward, to maintain competitiveness, because it releases the generative value of AI working with humans. And that is groundbreaking and game-changing. So if you want to remain competitive, then you need to consider now how you start to capture decision traces, how you start to engage conversationally with AI to surface value, how you train your AI human orchestrators in your organization. Now, I'd be really interested in your view on that, whether you're doing anything already in organizations, what you consider the value might be of the AI human loop, and I hope you will be able to maintain an interest in human cognition in the age of AI, and I look forward to joining you on further vlogs. Thank you.